Coming up on No Pulp, we'll start with a cliche today. I'll explain why the game never ends until the final buzzer sounds.
And I'll tell you why Georgia should be in the college football playoff, wait for it, even if they lose to LSU.
Wow, a two-loss Georgia. If you stick around to the end of the show, I'll tell you why tropical basketball is the best kind of basketball. Grab your sunglasses, get some sunscreen, take a trip with me to Hawaii. Wait, never mind, we're in Syracuse. It's snowing.
We're in Hawaii.
It is snowing here. Anyway, it's No Pulp, and it starts right now. What's up, party people? Give me Texas Tech. Jared Culver, I think they win.
Small schools can jump up and beat these big teams and compete down the stretch.
That offense is going to be fantastic.
I am ready to go to battle. Officially crossover season, and we've got a jam-packed edition of No Pulp. Cam Macaulay alongside Corey Spector. Plenty of sanctions to take care of in men's college basketball. We're going to go to college football first, but let's address the elephant in the room, Cam. There's one person on this desk with two clear eyes, and there's one that does not have two clear eyes right
Well,
now.
listen, if you go back to the Olympics a couple years ago when Bob Costas had an eye infection, I also happen to have an eye infection, and it's just following in the footsteps of some Syracuse legends.
And how do we clear this? How does this get solved?
Time and the human process. Isn't the human body amazing?
Well, the one color that it seems to be in your eyes is crimson right now. So let's start with the Crimson Tide. And it hurts right now for Alabama that star quarterback Tua Tagovailoa is hurt. Tua is done for the year after suffering a dislocated right hip in the second quarter of a blowout win over Mississippi State. It hurts even more that Jalen Hurts, is no longer with the Crimson Tide. Nick Saban forced to turn to sophomore signal caller Mac Jones. Alabama right now at number 5 on the outside looking in. Its playoff hopes squared firmly on the shoulders of Mac Jones. So it begs the question, Cam, how alive are the Tide?
Well, listen, Alabama had to win out, basically, regardless of who their quarterback was, to really have any shot at the playoff. And this just sucks for all parties involved. It obviously sucks for Tua, sucks for Alabama, it sucks for college football. But you look at Mac Jones, he had a solid debut in his first game starting for Alabama against Arkansas, 18 for 22, 235. But my problem is Alabama, regardless, won't be in the SEC championship game. Auburn is a tough test for them. Yes. I just don't think they control their own destiny.
Well, you mentioned Arkansas, right? Great stats against Arkansas, great stats against Mississippi State when he came in and played in that game, but those two teams are outside the top 90 in scoring defense. You got to go face Auburn in the Iron Bowl in 2 weeks, the number 13 defense in the entire country. If you go in there and win with a backup quarterback, then fine. I'm convinced. I just don't see that happening.
Granted, Mac Jones sounds like an Alabama quarterback, doesn't he?
He really does. He's got that Southern feel.
Absolutely. Florida native, not Alabama, but what's the difference, right? Well, listen, on the other side of the SEC, Georgia officially clinched the SEC East and a spot in the SEC title game with a 21-14 win over then number 12 Auburn. The Dogs are number 4 in the latest AP rankings, but remember they lost to South Carolina earlier in the year. Are they the favorites for that 4th and final spot?
Absolutely. You mentioned that South Carolina game. That was a double overtime loss. So it was a close game throughout. Yes, it's not a team you want to lose to, but I think Georgia is probably the best one-loss team in the entire country. They dominated Auburn in that game. They led 21-0 through the first 3 quarters, and now Georgia going for their they have their 3rd straight SEC title game clinched already. And Georgia, this is a team that's so good on defense. We mentioned how good Auburn is, but Georgia, 10.5 points allowed per game. That's 2nd in the entire country. And yes, their offense isn't sexy, but Jake Fromm has the experience. He's a 3rd-year starter. DeAndre Swift is so elusive and spectacular in the backfield. So if those two guys are good enough, we know how great that defense is. I don't see why Georgia not only can't get into the college football playoff, why they can't win this entire thing.
Yeah, certainly a national title contender, but they'll have the odds stacked against them against LSU. But I don't think it matters that much because this Georgia team with 2 losses, here's the difference. They got big wins on their resume. Notre Dame, Florida, Auburn. Who else that's really contending for that 4th spot has it?
On the road too. They beat Tennessee on the road, Florida on the road, Auburn on the road.
They've scheduled non-conference. That cannot be understated. They went out and scheduled Notre Dame.
Yeah, Kirby Smart is really doing a fantastic job
Absolutely.
at Georgia. And let's slide over to the Big 12. Oklahoma seemed destined for its 2nd loss this season, this time at number 13 Baylor. The Sooners got walloped in the first half on Saturday. The Bears held a 31-10 lead at the break. Oklahoma trailing by as much as 25 points in that game.
28-3, Corey.
It's a
Magic
familiar
numbers.
score. It really is. Go back to that Super Bowl a few years ago. Jalen Hurts and company, though, just like the Patriots did, they flipped the switch and they outscored Baylor 24-0 in the second half to emerge with a 3-point victory. Oklahoma at number 10 in last week's installment of the CFP rankings. Cam, how legit are the Sooners' chances of sneaking into the top 4 when those final rankings are announced on December 8th?
I mean, this is very easily Oklahoma's best win of the season, right?
Of course.
After that, though, who have they beaten? Texas? Is Texas a good win?
It's not
Is
great.
it? So here's my thought process, right? Yes, Oklahoma has the 1 loss. They might win the Big 12 with 1 loss. 2-loss Georgia should get in over them.
Really?
Because Georgia, I know they lost to South Carolina.
No 2-loss team has ever made the playoff.
But Georgia, they have the resume. They have the really good wins. And if they lose to LSU by 14, I mean, with how good LSU is, Oklahoma just hasn't beaten anybody. And I can't, as a playoff committee, I don't have confidence putting Oklahoma in at the 4th spot against LSU. They'd get walloped with their defense.
So here's the problem, right? So there's a lot of things that the College Football Playoff Committee looks at. One of them is the eye test. You don't have the eye test right now. You need to go get a test. The eye
Trust
test,
me, I already have.
You need to get a couple
them.
more, clearly. Look, the eye test for me, I think Oklahoma's really good, right? You have Jalen Hurts leading at that position, at the quarterback position, after Kyler Murray was so good last year. He's been somewhat even better than Kyler Murray was last year, and it's so unbelievable to say that, but Jalen Hurts has been so good. I think if Oklahoma runs the table, and if Baylor runs the table, because they need to make sure that Baylor win looks really good, that's how Oklahoma maybe sneaks in. Obviously, they need some help, but I think there's still a shot.
You don't need good eyes to see their weak schedule, though. That's the problem. Listen, speaking of undefeated teams falling, number 8 Minnesota served up a major disappointment in Ames this weekend, dropping to number 19 Iowa, dropping to number 20 Iowa, 19-23. Excuse me. Now the Gophers still have just 1 loss, and if they win out, they'd have a chance to win the Big Ten. But Corey, how much is the boat leaking up north?
The boat's leaking, and the nail's in the coffin on this one, Cam. Look, this was a great story all year. PJ Fleck comes over from Western Michigan, a down year last year. They come back, they're ready to rock and roll under this team and under this new leadership. He revitalizes the program, but look, I still think Minnesota gets into the Big Ten championship game. They're not going to lose to Northwestern. I think they went on senior day against Wisconsin. Very good team, but I think at home they beat Wisconsin. But you really think Minnesota's going to beat an angry Penn State team in the championship game that's already lost to them? Do you think they're going to beat a dominant Ohio State team under Justin Fields? I just don't see it. They're probably going to have 2 losses by the end of the year.
Yeah.
This Minnesota team.
I mean, theoretically, this is possible, right? Like, if you beat Wisconsin and you beat Ohio State and you're a 1-loss Big Ten champion, like, you're getting in. But Ohio State is so freaking good. Yep. I just can't see that happening.
They're good on offense. They're good on defense.
They're good everywhere.
And good's not even the right word. They're amazing. They're terrific. Yeah. They're so proficient on both sides of the football that I don't see Minnesota defeating Ohio State nor Penn State a second time. I just don't see it. So Minnesota probably one of those teams on the outside looking in. And Cam, if you take a close look at the top 10, even the top 15, really, there are a slew of teams with either no losses this season or just 1 defeat so far this year. Who are the teams on the outside looking in right now that you feasibly believe have some sort of shot?
Probably the closest is Penn State. Now you think about it, Penn State has their 1 loss to Minnesota, which isn't a bad loss because Minnesota's been a very good team this year, but it's not a great loss. But listen, Penn State has they control their destiny. You beat Ohio State, you get to the Big Ten title game. I think simply beating Ohio State and not losing by a ton to Minnesota again, that might be
another
enough.
2-loss team you could see in the playoff?
Yeah, but think about it. Who's the Big Ten? The Big Ten champion would be Minnesota, who would have beaten Penn State twice, but have also lost to Iowa. Like, but it's all about the Ohio State win for Penn State. It's all about that. If you take out Ohio State, anything can happen. Anything can happen in the Big Ten.
I think Penn State has a legitimate shot. If they beat Ohio State, look, I think Ohio State's the best team in the country. I know LSU, a lot of people have pegged as the best team in the country. I think Ohio State, from top to bottom, offensively and defensively, is the best team in the country. I'm looking at Penn State. Don't forget about Oregon, though. Yes, Justin Herbert, if they win the Pac-12, I think this is an opportunity for Oregon to sneak in as well.
You know what, Corey? Call me a politician. I have a 5-step plan. I did the research on this to see how outlandish it would be that a Pac-12 team gets into the college football playoff. Are you ready for it?
Hit me with it.
All right, let's put this up on the screen so everybody else can see it. Let's look at this. So, step 1, Clemson has to lose, okay? Any game. Doesn't matter. If they lose, they're out. LSU's got to win out. Ohio State's got to win out. Now, either Baylor or Oklahoma need to lose a game before the Big 12 championship game, but then win the Big 12, so you got a 2-loss Big 12 champ. Oof. And then Alabama has to lose to Auburn. 1 LSU, 2 Ohio State, 3 Georgia, then Pac-12.
You got to write this down for me. I'm really confused.
Well, we'll go over it later in the show. How about that? We'll go over it later. Cool. Maybe on the break. Hey, coming up on No Pulp, the sounds of the hardwood fill our ears once again. And Corey and I will grade some of the biggest stories early in the college basketball season. So stick around. We're back in 90.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for information on how to provide even better care for the person who wants to care of you.
Got no Pulp, Cameron Macaulay alongside Corey Spector. And Corey, how's your jumper looking?
Oh, it depends where I am on the court. If I'm on the right wing, if I'm spotted up, someone finds me, I don't have a defender in front of me, pretty good.
All right,
If you put me
there you
on the other side of the court, no shot.
The PJ Tucker special in the corner. Listen, it takes a lot of work to get that PB&J peanut butter jumper. Why are we talking about this? Because it's officially go time on courts across the country, and the early season has served up plenty of development. So get your syllabus out, Corey. Let's grade some of these early season stories, and let's begin on Beale Street, where the 2019 class's #1 prospect, James Wiseman, was ruled ineligible by the NCAA for taking benefits from current Memphis head coach Penny Hardaway in 2017 when his family moved from Nashville to Memphis to play for Hardaway in high school. Now, Wiseman initially filed a lawsuit against the NCAA, and the Tigers played Wiseman against UIC on November 8th thanks to a court order. Since then, they have dropped that, and they are applying for reinstatement. Corey, how did Memphis handle this?
It's so confusing, and look, we're going to give some grades here. I give Memphis a C because this is unprecedented. It's not an F because we've never seen this before. And look, there's a lot of back and forth going on with this Tigers team because it's the most hyped season since 2008. They've got tons of freshmen on the roster. And when you have someone of the talent and the caliber like James Wiseman, you want him to play. But at the same time, there's still something illegal going on. So I just don't know. This is so unprecedented because you have a head coach who wasn't there, who served as a booster prior to being there. Like, where's the line there? I'm just really confused.
And granted, this was 2008 when Penny Hardaway donated $1 million to Memphis for the Penny Hardaway Hall of Fame in a beautiful twist of irony. But context is important here. And if you look at the NCAA's bylaws, $11,500 in benefits gets you around 30% of the season. So I'm giving this an A for Memphis because you think about it. They understand, okay? You're losing him for a third of the year, but you get the #1 recruit in the country. You hire Penny Hardaway, the #1 recruit. Memphis is a national title contender. They played this beautifully.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing, right? At the end of the day,
Very
it's confusing. We don't know what kind of punishment that Memphis is going to get. But another team in college basketball, it's kind of wishy-washy in terms of knowing what its future holds.
There's a lot of them, aren't there?
It's Kansas. If you think about the Jayhawks, if you remember back to earlier this fall, KU was accused of committing multiple Level 1 violations, the most severe in the NCAA. Head coach Bill Self has also been charged with a lack of, quote, institutional control. Yet despite this heavy cloud sort of looming over Lawrence,
fog.
It really is. He continues to churn out talent, gets those 5-star recruits, some 3-star recruits. Bryce Thompson, 2 other players have committed to Kansas. Cam, how would you grade Kansas' efforts right now in the face of all this adversity?
I give this a B+ because what this says is that winning in college basketball isn't really important to these 5 stars because let's face it, they're in there to get to the NBA, be drafted in the lottery, get the bag, okay? Kansas's brand and exposure is very good and no level of sanctions is really going to affect that.
I like the B+, but I like it even more. A+, because Self has been so transparent. He's telling these recruits that we didn't do anything wrong, but we don't know what the punishment is going to be, and yet still a 5-star wants to come, some 3-stars want to come, and he keeps bringing in that talent. This is an A+. He's doing a great job.
Definitely. I buy it as a good grade. Maybe not an A+. That seems a little easy. Might be an easy grader. Okay, let's go over to the East Coast for some more violations, because the NCAA sensed something fishy when Syracuse forward Torian Thompson transferred to Seton Hall in 2017. They were right. An NCAA investigation found there were 154 phone calls between Seton Hall and Thompson's mother without SU's permission. So the NCAA wound up docking the Pirates one scholarship. They took away 2 weeks of recruiting content, fined Seton Hall $5,000 and 1% of the basketball budget. How do you grade this punishment?
F. It's a slap on the wrist. Come on. 1 scholarship, 2 weeks without contact, $5,000. 1% of the budget? What is that, dinner? 1 dinner? A dessert? I mean, that's nothing. That's nothing.
It's ice cream for the players.
If you wanted them to stop, if you want them to stop doing this, don't interrupt me right now. If you want them to stop doing this, don't take away 1%. Take 20%. This is ridiculous.
I've got a C for this, but I'm asking the question. Listen, Torian Thompson's a starter for Seton Hall. He's not that good a player. Like, if this happened to Miles Powell, would the punishment be more severe? Set a precedent, NCAA. C.
This is an F. This is an F. Right. Well, let's take a breather on all this law talk, accusations. On a lighter note, Kansas, who was cruising to a 55-point win over Monmouth on Friday, had what could have been the final possession of the game. Freshman Tristan Enaruna was dribbling the clock out at midcourt when all of a sudden George Papas for the Hawks. Take a look at this.
Cookies.
He swipes the ball away, sprints the other way, and throws down the hammer, and then he gets a T, a technical foul. All right, Cam, so here's your scale. Here's your scale. An F would mean this action for Papas is considered lame, unsportsmanlike. An A would mean this is the coolest play you've ever seen. What do you got?
C plus for this guy. Listen, here's the thing, okay?
You're
great
walking
play.
a thin line.
Great steal, great dunk, solid poster. I don't know why the Kansas defender contested it. You're going to trash talk down 50? You're really going to trash talk at Kansas down 50? Like, come on, dude. You got to understand the context better.
You give this one an A because you play until the final whistle.
Okay, he did
I love
that.
the heart. It's a mid-major team, probably lower than a mid-major team, going into Lawrence, playing Kansas. You only get one shot to dunk on that hardwood, and he did so. Well done to Pop.
Yeah, but then you don't let him know about it. You don't get teed up with 2 seconds left in the game.
You know what? If there's 2 seconds left in the game, the referee should hold their whistle. Let the kid have
but
some
that
fun.
was a tee. Don't
We're
trash
not
talk.
gonna win many games.
Don't trash talk down 50. Just don't trash talk.
But just slam it home.
Just don't trash talk down 50.
Come on. All right, we're going to take one quick break here on No Pulp, but when we return, I'll change from educator to a judge. I'll be deciding who has the better argument for the winners of the big-time conferences in college basketball. Is it Cam, or is it going to be our guest, Jaron May? We'll find out after this.
Hey, look, it's those guys. Are you good to drive?
I'm fine.
How many did you have?
I should be fine.
You should be.
Go and step out of the vehicle for me.
See ya, buddy. Good luck. So turns out, buzz driving and drunk driving, they're the same thing, and it costs around $10,000. So not worth it.
Back on No Pulp, Cam Macaulay, Corey Spector. We're now joined by CitrusTV college basketball quote-unquote expert, Jaron May. Jaron, welcome. We're going to find out your level of credibility in just a moment. So it's never too early to start thinking about which teams are going to claim their individual conferences. We'll start in the Big Ten. Michigan State first in the regular season last year. The Spartans also won the Big Ten tournament last year. Jaron, you're our guest. We'll allow you to start first. Is Michigan State the repeat champion this year?
No, I don't really like Michigan State being the champion this year. What I have is Maryland, because they do something that is pretty special that a lot of college schools don't really do, and that's play all 94 feet on the court, because they do a full court press. They broke it out against Oakland this past week. It shut down that offense, and if you can't score, you can't win games. Their defense is suffocating. They're averaging 6 blocks a game and 8 steals. When you can't score, can't win games. Maryland, champs.
You know who breaks that press? Cassius Winston does. Give me Michigan State again in the Big Ten. Cassius Winston might be the player of the year in college basketball this season. 17.5 points, 6.8 assists, and 18.8 points and 7.5 assists last year. Plus, this team returns 3 starters from a team that went to the Final Four. Where did Maryland go in the tournament?
It doesn't matter. They're better this year.
So is Michigan State.
Okay.
Michigan State, the best in the Big Ten.
I'm going to give this one to Michigan State. I think that the Spartans galvanize and sort of revitalize under Cassius Winston, all the adversity he's going through right now.
Point.
So I think Michigan State, and I think
fine.
Cam has the better argument. So let's move on to the SEC. It was a wacky season in the Southeastern Conference last year. We had the number 5 seed Auburn. We had the number 3 seed Tennessee in the SEC championship game, with the Tigers claiming that championship. So who gets that automatic bid in the SEC this season? Cam, we'll go with you first.
Not Kentucky. I have Florida, because if you look at last season, Florida was a really good team that just struggled when the offense wound up drying up. They fixed that, not with a recruit, but with a grad transfer in Kerry Blackshear, who might be the player of the year in the SEC. He brings so much offensive versatility, excellent for Virginia Tech last year, and they got 5-star Scotty Lewis and Trey Mann as well to add scoring. They've got the defense, now they have the offense.
You have a lot of names for Florida, but I'm going with Kentucky because there are 2 names on the Naismith Player of the Year watch list on Kentucky. And now you might say, sure, they just lost a bad game in the early season, but the thing is, they have won 10 of the last 20 SEC championships, and
that's 50%, right?
And in their last 5 SEC championships, 4 of them they've lost an early game in non-conference play. So they kind of forget about those early games and really only focus on SEC play. Give me Kentucky.
I'm a big history guy. Jaron's got this one. Kentucky, the winner
Evansville.
of the SEC. I get it. It's a bad loss. It's early in the season. All right, let's move on. Shush. Move on. Pac-12 has been criticized both in football and basketball in recent years, but now the conference has 4 teams within the top 25. You got Oregon, Arizona, Colorado, Washington. Jaron, who emerges from this field in the Pac-12?
I got Oregon. They are number 6 in the entire country, and they're number 11. Let me clarify that.
That's bad math.
Team.
Right, but the thing is, their women's basketball team kind of overshadows their men's basketball team. But what I'm saying is their men's basketball team is still extremely good, especially because they have light-out shooters. They're 24th in the NCAA, shooting 52% from the field and shoot 42% from beyond the arc. If you can score that much, you're going to win games.
You know who else can score? Colorado. McKinley White, the best player in the Pac-12. This is Tyler Bay's breakout year. This team, genuinely, they won 9 of their last 11 games. They returned practically everybody and got big man Dallas Walton back. This team is going to shock people.
I think this is an Oregon conference. I'm sorry, Cam, because I think Oregon's shooting shows out. It's fine. They're both very good. Okay, I think this Oregon team shoots out better than Colorado does, and I think Peyton Pritchard, that leader, is the difference for Oregon. 2 for Jaron. Don't make me retract it.
All right.
2 for Jaron, 1 for Cam. This final one's going to be worth 2 points. So the winner of this one actually takes the entire thing. So we're going to move closer to home in the ACC. For Duke, the champions last year, no Zion Williamson, no R.J. Barrett. The runners-up were actually Florida State. They don't have their 2 main guys from a season ago, Mfiondu Kabengele and Terrence Mann. Cam, are either of those teams, Florida State or Duke, the winners of the ACC?
No, UNC for me. They have a guy you might have heard of, Jaron, Cole Anthony. 27.3 points, 7.3 rebounds, 3.3 assists, and 2.3 steals, and he's got the best point guard coach in the country. Raymond Felton, Ty Lawson, Kendall Marshall, Marcus Page, Joel Berry, Kobe White, and Cole Anthony. My player of the year pick, He might have a Zion-like impact for this Carolina team.
Well, one player does not make an entire team. And when you look at it, the best team in the entire country right now, #1 Duke. They're best in the country. They're best in the ACC. You can't bet against Coach K. And they have a very good and favorable schedule. A lot of their tough games, quote unquote, like #2 Louisville, is in Cameron Indoor. So that's kind of a tough place to play. And I wouldn't even choose UNC as my second choice. I'd pick Louisville.
Well,
I think that's number
well,
Don't disrespect Cole Anthony.
All right, hold on. Well, that's bold, but I've learned a lot of lessons in life. It's never to go against Coach K. Give it to Duke. All right, we're going to take one final break. Jaren's the winner on this one. We still have some huge games to preview this weekend in football, men's basketball, and women's basketball. Stay with us here on No Poll.
Million children struggling with hunger in America. This is a serious problem, but one we can solve. Visit feedingamerica.org to help. Together we can solve hunger. Together we're feeding America.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Man, that's a sick stiff arm. Welcome back to No Poll. Corey Spector, Cam Macaulay. And there are some huge games coming up this weekend. We'll start with football. #9 Penn State visits Ohio State, the #2 team in the country. Who do you have?
Last time I was on the show, I said Penn State would beat Ohio State. I've changed my mind. Ohio State's really good.
Ohio State is really good. At home, I take the Buckeyes as well. What other games we have?
Well, we have in the basketball court, we have LSU and Utah State. Now, Utah State is actually the higher ranked team in this matchup.
I don't buy it. LSU. I just don't buy it.
LSU lost to VCU. Shout out to VCU, by the way, for scheduling their own
Shaka
coaches.
Smart's not there, is he?
Well, they beat Shaka Smart's Texas, and then they beat Will Wade, who was a former VCU coach with LSU.
All right, one final big game, and it's actually in women's basketball. The #1 team in the country, the team that just beat the U.S. national team, the Oregon Ducks, come to Syracuse to face off against the #17 Orange. Who?
The Ducks. Sabrina Ionescu, the best player in college basketball by a mile.
Syracuse is good. They're not on Oregon's level. The Ducks have this one. We're going to get to our final words now. And Cam, I know you're more of an angry soliloquy guy, so I'll give the happy one. You know, everyone's excited to get home, spend some time with family, feast on some turkey and cranberries during Thanksgiving. Not me. And yeah, I love stuffing just as much as the next guy, but what I'm really looking forward to next week is when basketball meets sunglasses and flowered shirts. And Lays, yeah, the Maui Invitational, it does not get any better than this. Every year we get to watch college basketball from early in the afternoon until after midnight. And this year we've got Kansas, we've got UCLA, Michigan State, Virginia Tech. Hey, never sleep on the host team, Chaminade, the D3 school. Yeah, they're 8-92 all time in the tourney, but remember back to when Chaminade beat Cal, a Power 5 team 2 years ago. You just never know what's going to happen in Maui, and it sure is going to be a joy to watch next Monday through Wednesday.
You know, college football on Thanksgiving is tired. Football on Thanksgiving is tired. College basketball on Thanksgiving is where it's at. And we started with Crimson Eyes. My final word ends with the Crimson Tide, because let me take you back to the 2018 national title game, a game that I was in attendance for. And I made conversation throughout the game with an Alabama fan sitting behind me.
Weird flex.
Georgia up 13. Nick Saban took out the starter, put in a freshman backup. My Alabama fan behind me said he was special. His name, Tua Tagovailoa. Get better. Really should not play three years in football. Like, it's just too long. These guys are getting hurt. I feel really bad. Get better. I'm rooting for you all the way.
The guy that was supposed to be #1 in the NFL draft. Very sad story. That'll do it for No Pulp this week. For Cam Macaulay, I'm Corey Spector, Syracuse. We'll see you next time.